So here we are again. This is Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft, and Rebecca Croft is here. And I believe we're recording on, oh, yes, we are recording also on Zoom. So that's good. Well, we have something special tonight because I did an interview with Mr. Marcus Pittman earlier this week. And instead of him being on our spaces today, what we're doing is we are listening. We're going to be watching and listening to our interview with my interview with him earlier this week, and then we're going to comment on it tonight. So we want to talk about Lore TV. We want to talk about what I call a responsibility to improve faith-based film. And so those are some of the things we're talking about. Also, just commenting in general on the Lore platform. So we really love their platform. So, but let's watch the interview. We're going to be watching it on Zoom, and let's see if I can do that here. We did practice this before, didn't we, honey? Except I didn't queue it up. I need to queue it up, and that was my mistake.
Cue it up.
Queue it up, yo.
So while you're doing that, so Lore TV is a platform similar to Angel Studios in that they use fan funding to produce uh, shows and films.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'll explain more about that in just a minute. But yes, there is a little bit of a difference. So we will get into that. But I like their difference. I think their difference is good. But I do have a belief about it too, which is that I believe that they should do something specific. And we can talk about that. But can you see it?
Yeah.
Good. All right, there we are. We've shared our screen. I queued it up to where Marcus is about to speak. He comes in. So let's watch this. This is going to be about an hour long interview. And then we're going to, and you should be able to hear this just fine on Spaces. And then after we watch the interview and listen to the interview, we're going to be discussing it. So here we go. That's faith-based world. Well, hello, sir.
Hey man, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm
man.
I'm new to this, so I've been a filmmaker for about 15 years and started doing this effort at Media Moses and now Cultural Warfare because Media Moses is an effort to change faith-based and conservative media and make it, more updated, and also to remind our community that marketing is really important. We think of it as a bad word. I
Yeah.
did my entire time doing art. I couldn't stand
Right.
marketing, right? And then there's the marketing people who ruin the marketing of your film and mismarket it. So Media Moses is an effort not just to do marketing, but to get us away from Hollywood, as in Exodus, right? This is the Moses part of it.
Right, right. Yeah.
Exodus out of Hollywood into a new place where we can worship God in the wilderness, right? Which is really our duty before God to do our best to make this new nation, right? So our culture is a big part of that.
Yeah, what
So,
do you do? What do you do besides the podcast?
well, I write. I'm in efforts to do a lot of different things. I have 4 shows planned on YouTube and all this stuff. Cultural Warfare is my first one because it's just me basically talking about my beliefs about culture. And a lot of people don't even understand how to do culture creation and all this stuff.
Right.
They call it the culture war, right? Because they have no understanding. The culture war is a political term. It's not even having anything to do with culture.
Right.
A lot of people don't even know this. Like
Right.
they don't know that the history of the culture war is a political term from Prussia and Germany that was about co-opting culture for the sake of these new progressive movements, right? The left and the right
Right.
wing. And so that's a political thing. I don't care about that. What I care about is entertainment and real culture and values, right? So
Yeah.
it's not that I don't care about politics. I do. But my effort here is to really get us to doing things like Tolkien and Lewis did years ago, right?
Right.
After World War I, World War II, there's this decimation to our culture. And so they're there to kind of start rebuilding the culture and reminding us why all these things are happening. There's this hunger for power in as a theme in Lord of the Rings. And so our desire, our need really is to find peace in God. It's not so much to have earthly power. And
Right.
so these are just some of the themes that Tolkien and Lewis are reminding us of. But to your question, and by the way, I should be asking you questions.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you, brother. Um, what I'm doing is a variety of things. I found that community is really lacking. So just the understanding of what community is really anemic right now in our culture because people aren't giving into community. Like back in the Greek days, it was like plant seeds of trees, you will never sit under the shade of these trees, right? And so they understood that community was a matter of giving. It wasn't a matter of receiving. It was a matter of
Right.
just building into and never expecting things in return. And so we've lost so many of our civilizational values that we don't even know what community is anymore. We go online, we go on social media, and we just get. We don't give anything. It's all about getting resources. It's not about giving to people and learning from people and having relationships with people and all of this. And so that's what community is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so I found out by running a local film networking community, which is called Film Bar Mondays. It comes out of Atlanta. I learned that we just don't have a film community in my local area, which is the Tampa Bay area. And for me, this is shocking because I came from going to LA and learning about how to pitch and learning about how to do all these things and accomplish these things. And it's always about community, always.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, whether you're having a lunch or whether you're having a party or whether you're having a mixer at a film festival, right? All of these things are about meeting and talking and pitching and, being relaxed and having relationships. And this is none of what's going on in my local community. We have like networking meetings, but all of those things are about sitting in a classroom and listening to some guy drone on about how he made a film back in 1985
Right.
or something. And we're supposed to learn something from this guy. And then what, right? This is not really a community, you know?
Right.
So then I went up to Atlanta where they have a very large film community and Film Bar Mondays is there. And I learned from them, oh, this is where you hang out at a bar. You just hang out with directors and PAs and actors and you just start talking, and you start making relationships. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is more normal, you know?
Yeah.
And so I brought it down here to Tampa Bay, and a lot of people did not come out. It was difficult to give them the vision. After 2020 happened, everybody left. And that's when I started getting into faith-based film because I realized, oh my goodness, this is our society is worse, far worse off than I thought. Like I was just trying to sell product to AFM. Like that's what I was trying to do. And I got pretty close a few times and I was learning about how to pitch and I was getting directors together locally. And what I would do is I would try to have directors in my back pocket where it was like, we can do something, right? But what we need to do is find a distributor first, because that's the
Right.
way I think. And so I went out to AFM and was trying to get distributors to give me what they want. Like, what are you looking for? What kind of
Right.
genre? What kind of protagonist, antagonist, plot, anything you want. And I'll just bring that to my directors and we'll just create it for you in a year. Like, so it's kind of a reverse backwards way of thinking, but that's just the way I think. But then what I eventually realized was, where's my artistic vitality? I'm always like trying to make something and appease somebody else, right? But that was what almost everybody was doing at AFM. It was
Right.
always like, well, let's do what the market wants. Let's give people what they need and what they want. And good will come out of that, right? There's the cream rises, and this is true, right? But what are these screenwriters always trying to make? They're trying to make something that a market already wants.
Right.
So I realized I was watering down my artistic vitality. And then by 2020, I was like, not only am I watering down myself, but I'm seeing that the entire community is watered down. It's not really doing anything vital. And the Christian community is even worse. They don't even understand how to make good films. So now I started doing media emojis because I felt like by 2022, I had done a podcast about making better film and featuring local filmmakers. And this is called the Film Bar Review on Spotify or whatever. And so I realized we need to make a new film movement the way they did after World War II, like the French New Wave, Italian neorealism, all this stuff, right? Because why? Because they have new technology. They've been changed as a society. Like they have to heal from all the struggles of war. And the only way to do that is through new art, right? So these guys pick up a camera. They don't even have sync sound and all this stuff. They're just shooting stuff black and white. They don't even have lights, right? So it's like, why aren't we doing this after 2020? Because 2020 was like a war. I mean, it
Right.
was shocking to many
Right.
people, to me. And so, but when things in social media are the way they are, we can't just make what we want.
Right.
So people are feeling that kind of like pressure,
That's right.
and it's not coming out to the normal Hollywood avenues, because they're part of this whole thing.
Right.
So there needs to be another group of people. And my hope is that it's the Christian community. You know, we need another group of people who want new art, who need kind of a new expression. And we called it in our podcast, we called it Conwave, which is like conservative new wave kind of thing. But the idea was to make it black and white with little DSLR cameras shooting on a street corner and small stories that mean something to us, right? And so it's very much in the French New Wave style. But that was just an idea. And so from there, I understood that just like in the past, a lot of my own films didn't seem to make much of a difference. I think a lot of great filmmakers are out here. We have product, but we can't make a difference because why? Because we don't have either a film community that can raise up our profile in our local community, or we don't have distributors and people looking for us anymore. Like we don't have people looking for Kevin Smiths and, you
We
know,
are.
well, you are, yes. Well, this is why you're here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We can talk about this. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you said about like Kevin Smith is true. We don't have people, we don't really have an incubation system for independent filmmakers, especially in the conservative and Christian space. So that's why we built Lore, LOOR.TV. And really, we just found because, you know, I was head of advertising for the agency that did PureFlix's marketing. And we'd spend $1 million a month advertising to 35-year-old women, like the worst movies you could possibly imagine.
Hallmark
And
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, Hallmark, Lifetime, that sort of style. And my job was to like, take out any guns out of a trailer or anything that might offend these women. And I did that for a year until I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, this
Yeah.
is just, and everybody's donating all this money to PureFlix because they're like, we're the Christian film company and we're protecting you from, sex and violence and all this sort
Right.
of stuff.
It's what we're
Which,
supposed to do. Yeah.
yeah, that's what we're
Good
supposed to
people.
do.
Yeah.
And so people are like supporting the mission, but there was never any incentive to actually take that money and then build something uh, that served as an example to what they're telling people they want to do.
Right.
Um, and so uh, I was like, well, one, we need to build something that allows filmmakers to have the freedom to be able to make what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that doesn't exist right now.
No.
Hollywood, the budgets are too expensive to be able to make what you want. There's too
Right.
much risk,
It's too
financial
risky.
risk.
Yep.
Yeah, and so when you spend $250 million on a Marvel movie, like that movie's got to make a return,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or at least break even. Like the hope
Right.
is that it breaks even and they can sell merch
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. But like it's got to at least break even. And um, what I found was like if you look through like I love studying television history and
Yeah.
IPs and stuff
I
like
like your
that.
posts on Substack, by the way. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So I love that. And then you look at like MTV, HBO, Food Network, Comedy Central, all
I
these
liked what you
cable.
were talking about with Lorne Michaels and SNL. That was good because you were
Yeah,
talking about an incubator. That was
that's
really
right.
good stuff.
So all these cable companies started with some sort of incubation, like they were made to be an incubator, like Food Network. When they started, they had one kitchen, and every cook would use the same kitchen, and
Yeah,
the
that's how
the
to do
kitchen
it.
smelled of dead fish because there wasn't enough refrigerators. I mean, like that's how Food Network got built, and now it's $1 billion brand. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing with like MTV. They have like one place, and they just there was only
Yeah.
like 100 music videos that were ever made when they made the network. And so and then of course the best example, as you said, is Lorne Michaels and Saturday Night Live, which
Brilliant.
is 50-year-old institution. It's coming up on the 50th season this year.
Yep.
This 50-year-old institution where every week, uh, Lorne Michaels has these comedians fail live on TV week
Yep.
after week, 90% of the time. All of the sketches are bad. But every now and
And it's
then,
great.
through that process, you get like a Wayne's World, or you
Yeah.
get what's I think one of the most recent ones that was successful was
There's so few now.
the
Yeah.
Tom Hanks David S. Pumpkin sketch that
Um,
resulted in a animated cartoon special.
oh, I
Um,
missed that. I haven't been
yeah,
watching them in so long now. I just gave up.
yeah. So that but like every now and then you get that, but you also get Will Ferrell's and Tina Fey's and Adam Sandler's that go off to do multi-billion-dollar projects and stuff on
Yeah,
their own.
they're great.
And we don't have that because one, I think conservatives and the faith-based movement, they always tend to think like money is power. So if I spend a lot of money on a project, I'm automatically going to get the
So
eyeballs
foolish.
because
So
of all the
foolish.
attention that comes
Yeah.
from, you know, but if you look back on history, you can't just make a new IP by writing a big check,
No.
right? Like
Throw
like they
money at it,
all,
right? That's just,
yeah, just throw money at it. It's like, and people forget that there's 100 years of comic books that resulted in the
hmm.
Marvel movies we have today. It took
Yeah.
100 years to be able to get there. And so, that's a massive problem. But if study the history of the underground comic book movement,
Oh
study
yeah.
how, Stan Lee had to like fight, the Supreme Court and all this other sort of stuff, all these lawsuits against comic books being bad and endangering
Right.
the
Right.
kids. So
Corrupting of the
so
minds of the children.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so and then you can see also in the comic book industry, the people that left the comic, Marvel got too big, DC got too big, so they started like Spawn, which was independent comic
Yes.
book,
Independent. Yep.
and then I believe I could be wrong, but I think
Image
like the
comics.
same like The Walking Dead came from that same uh
Yeah.
publisher that started Spawn,
Right.
so you have just tremendous, like it's demonstrably true that all the
Hmm.
big IP brands that we have today started on a very small scale
Yes.
in some sort of independent way. And
Yep.
anybody who's not trying to create that is wasting their time. And any investor who's investing in flashy film projects are wasting their time.
Pretty
But
much. Pretty much. Yeah.
because as you said, you have to invest in this community.
Yeah,
Uh,
you really do. You
um,
really do.
and that's sort of what we're doing at Lore is where we've created a platform where the monthly subscriber spends their monthly subscription dollars funding movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, because the artist is pitching directly to the subscriber, we kind of get out of the way and just tell the filmmaker to make whatever you want. We have like no nudity
Right.
policy and
Yeah, you got to
no,
have some policies there for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, like, there's no neutrality. And then
It's
we have a no,
reasonable. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's a
reasonable.
reasonable
But as far as like violence and adult language and masculine content,
for
you
adults,
know,
you
yeah,
know, like
adult films, because I believe that conservatives, like when the kids go to bed, they watch Fox News
of
or
course.
they watch Survivor, right? Like
Hmm.
so, the it's foolish to say that every show a 5-year-old and a 95-year-old has to sit on the same couch and watch.
Right.
It's just not true.
Well, we
Christian
have this thing in
stories,
scripture, right? It's the weak in faith and the strong in faith. And we
right,
don't want to put a stumbling block before others who are weak in faith.
right,
And we want to accept the people who are strong in faith. And so
right.
there's this mutual love we have for each other. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah, and they're not supposed to stay weak in faith, right? I always
Oh,
say
yeah.
they're
Ooh.
not they're not supposed to stay in pure flesh,
Ah,
right? So uh, and,
don't hurt
and
my
and
feelings. My feels.
and yeah, and so that like that's the and so what we said is like, look, let's just give filmmakers freedom
Mm-hmm.
and just to break all the rules. We have an animated cartoon where teddy bears reenact the most violent Old Testament Bible
I think I've
stories.
seen that trailer. It's great.
Yeah, it's barely biblical, and that show's really popular. The second episode is over halfway funded right now, and
Good.
it's going to be on Ehud. If you know the Old Testament story of Ehud, it's
Oh,
about the fat,
yes. That's the
and
roles and the, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and the fat gets stuck in his stomach and
Oh,
pours out, and so all blood is stuffing and guts is stuffing,
hmm.
and um,
Is there going
uh,
to be a tent peg one? The tent peg.
there is, yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
There you go.
So I think that's the third episode actually.
Very important. You don't want to miss the tent
So
peg one. That's
Yeah, so now like our main goal is just finding the audience. Say, look, we have all these filmmakers here. They're fed up with the faith-based films just like you are, and
yes.
nobody's paying attention to them, that nobody's watching this content. And so now we're just encouraging subscribers to subscribe to Lore and to spend a few months funding movies and TV shows on there.
Yeah.
And the more stuff gets funded, the more new stuff gets presented to be funded, and we started with no content on our platform and just funding content. And then now we have about 55 pieces of content you can watch on our platform,
Good.
from documentaries, documentary series, first season of a cartoon show called Florida Lee, which is really funny and great.
Was that an AI animation?
It's not AI generated. It's basically AI as a tool. So a
Yes.
lot of the
Yes.
background artwork is generated with AI, and then a lot of the voice acting is using like AI filters on it
Cool.
to save costs on those sort of things.
I'm
Yeah, I
not
think the guy
personally
did.
like, I'm not personally scared of AI taking over.
No, me
I
neither.
think of it as a tool, basically.
Yeah, I think it's like
Yeah.
it's like saying you're scared of what South Park is doing with
Cameras or
construction
something.
paper. You
Technology.
know, yeah, it's like you can use anything to tell stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we want to be, we like to say we want to be the first platform that openly promotes AI as a storytelling
Oh, cool.
mechanism. And so how artists do that, they're going to come up with ways, and I'm excited about what that allows for them to do.
Yeah.
One of our shows is called Feltboard Sunday School. If you remember like the old
Oh,
Sunday school felt boards, so it's like an old lady telling Bible stories with like felt board cutout images.
right.
So we kind of call
Charming.
it like the Sunday school version of South Park.
Cool.
But it's all the felt board images are generated with like Midjourney, right?
Nice. Oh, okay, cool.
So there's but the reason we have those shows is because we give people the freedom to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and no one else will do that. Go and pitch an AI generated show to any faith-based streaming network platform, and you're most likely going to get turned down. They won't even hear you out because they
Yeah.
got to work with the unions, right? You know,
Oh yeah.
chosen big union. And so there's all these rules and
Hmm.
restrictions that really make that impossible.
Not
And
very
so
fun.
our goal is just to create really just a sandbox, and then to really develop the next new IPs out of this sandbox that we've created.
Okay,
And
yeah.
it's going really well. Yeah. So
Yeah, that was one of the big concerns I had when I saw your platform is everybody kind of relies on either a brand or a IP or something that sets them apart. And what I saw that set you guys apart was kind of the what would you call it, like a hybrid between crowdfunding and like Netflix. And so
yeah.
that's kind of the way I looked at what I saw like behind the counter, the technology that you guys were using,
Yeah, we
like
say it's
this
Netflix
open
and
pixel.
Kickstarter's based baby.
Yes, yes.
So
I like that because I actually am a fan of Angel's platform. I think that Angel Studios, one of the things they do well is that they really build fan bases
yeah,
and they do focus on marketing. I mean, the Harmon brothers are marketing guys. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
really. And then they did
I would
the
say primarily Angel is a marketing company.
yes.
Like that they're really good at that.
Yeah.
And so like they know how, and now a lot of their films are raising P&A for theater runs and stuff like that.
Yes. Which I'm
Um,
actually okay with. I'm good with that.
yeah, I think I think it's a great idea, and
Daily Wire
it's
is going theatrical now.
yeah, that's fine. But I think we also need to figure out ways to build up artists before they're ready to
Oh
make
yeah.
that theatrical run.
You do
So,
have to be ready.
and in order for that to happen, the artists have to bring with them a built-in audience. You
Right.
know,
Right.
the goal is that you don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing. Like
Yeah.
that, like right? Like so, you know, like that's organic viral advertising at its finest,
That
where
that would
you
be
don't
nice.
spend money. Yeah, you don't spend like so, but the way to do that is to build out franchises and IP that have sort of generational audiences attached to them. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, I like you see a Star Wars movie, like Star Wars has such giant awareness
Yeah.
that a lot of that fuels itself. They do spend a lot of money on marketing, and that helps too. But there's this but the marketing is able to capture the already pre-existing audience and stuff that, and right now we don't have that because our
No, we can
pre-existing
never have that again.
yeah, our pre-existing Christian audience is all Lifeway Christian bookstore shoppers,
Yeah.
and those bookstores don't exist anymore. So we're circulating those email lists that were generated through that time, you know, and
Mm.
now these people are in their 50s and 60s.
We need a
Right?
Lifeway sitcom where they're going into the store to work. Let's
Yeah,
sell these books knickknacks today, Sally.
yeah, our precious moment
I'll
contest for
sell out.
yeah. So yeah, you know, but the interesting thing is, and I think you alluded to this first, is that the surprising lack of desire there is, especially
It's
with those with
shameful.
investment capital, to actually be able to make the shift that's required. And when you look at
Yeah.
like Gen Z, right? Like they're super conservative now. They're
We
very
have to
strongly
get the Gen
conservative.
Zs. We have to. Yeah.
Donald Trump just interviewed Logan Paul, Logan Paul interviewed Donald Trump. Aiden Ross, who's a kick streamer, which most people probably don't even know what kick streaming is. It's a kick streamer, had 500,000 people watching his interview with Donald Trump. All
That's
young
something.
people,
Yeah.
all Gen Z, you know, and those guys don't go to the theater as much because they're way more willing to put their money behind artists they care about and
They're too
represents
busy
them.
making their next meme, they're too busy
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. And so we have to build platforms that allows for movies and TV shows to be told in ways that that audience will support it.
yeah.
And it might not be the theater. It might be,
No.
you know, streaming or crowdfunding or that sort of thing. I think
Mhm.
that's going to be the next shift uh, in entertainment. So
Yeah, it's going to have to be. I mean, there's really no way around that. The technology is going that direction.
yeah,
However, I am kind of an old school believer in face-to-face community, and I think that I'm hoping that there can be a movement again that reinvigorates the desire to actually have face-to-face relationships. But I think that's frankly the church. The church has got to do that.
yeah,
And when the church has been failing to do that, especially for men, and I find that, like you were talking about an incubator, I actually did an article, or not an article, but I did a podcast episode on this because it was you who inspired me to talk about Lauren Michaels and the incubator.
yeah,
Because one of the things that I do know about is improv comedy and actors enough to know it's just beautiful what they do. And so when you
yeah,
watch great comedians doing improv, like you were saying, on a weekly basis, they're failing, right? And I'm like, this is a good thing, right? Because
yeah.
when you
And
see guys doing improv, it's like
I
they're
think
just
like
having fun. Like you want them to do that,
yeah, like
you know?
a lot of people complain about how unfunny a lot of Saturday Night Live is. And like you'll say 95% of their sketches just bomb every time. And I think Lauren Michaels is smart enough to know that that sketch is gonna fail,
Hmm.
but he puts it on the air anyway because he wants to give the artists, the performers, a backbone.
Well,
And
he
and
comes from an
so
old
it's
school, the old school of Hollywood, where stars are people that you know, right? They're like
yeah,
your next door neighbor. They're somebody that you know. They're like your friend from high school, and he's like, I'm going to do this really dumb thing. Watch me while I do this. Hold my
yeah,
beer, right? And he
right,
just fails utterly, and everybody's cracking up laughing. Nobody
yeah,
cares.
right,
That's just a different
right.
era, right?
Yeah, and so like that whole improv comedy where you have like Second City and you have Upright Citizens Brigade and like all
Hmm.
these improv comedy clubs. Um
Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall. Yeah.
Great
So
stuff.
you have all these things. Those where you're Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell,
Hmm.
Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Will Ferrell. They all came from these, smoky improv comedy clubs.
Yep.
And so Lauren Michaels has developed this system to take people from these comedy clubs and to kind of give them a platform. And so I kind of see YouTube as that comedy club.
Yeah.
And then so now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, how do we get people off of YouTube and making stuff that might be a step or two above YouTube, but
Hmm.
not quite Hollywood level yet? And like have them build a name for themselves in front of a a very directed audience that's
Right.
looking for that content. And so that's what lore is. And we've been successful with it so far. And I think the plan is just to continue to grow and scale and raise capital and investment to really uh, turn lore into a national brand.
Well, I think what you said about IP, building the next big IP for the Christian community, I think there's something there because what I look at a lot is I'm a big planner. Like I'm a big like, let's make a master plan. You have a plan B, plan B, C, plan D. You don't ever expect any of them to work. You just kind of like throw everything at the wall. But what you do is you have good plans, right? And
Yeah,
so to me, IP is Hollywood. That's what Hollywood is.
right.
And obviously everyone wants built-in IP, but it just comes from making good art and then whatever hits hits. And then you're trying to control this IP, right? So you cannot avoid the artistic challenge. The artistic challenge is just to empower artists. Like you said, you give them freedom, right? You have to empower talented artists to build that IP. But
Yeah,
also, here's a really important thing that we have not been utilizing in the Christian community. We have 1,000 years of good content
yeah,
in Europe. That's great stuff. It's
yeah,
public domain. Why are none of our film directors like, I'm going to make a Shakespeare, which brings out the themes that are more Christian? I'm going
right.
to do Paradise Lost. I'm going to do
Yeah,
Dante's Inferno. I'm going to do, where are these people? Like they have no knowledge of these things. Like
right. No, they don't. They
What
don't.
about
They
George
don't.
McDonald?
No, they
George,
don't. They don't have knowledge of these things.
George McDonald's incredible. He's got tons of books. like the guy is like imminently like influential because he's influenced the Inklings. So it's like everyone
Right.
talks about the Inklings, but we can't use their stuff. You got to pay
Right.
for it. So
Right.
it's like, why don't you use George McDonald's stuff? I've already got a plan to do this, but like, remember how I talked about Conwave, but this black and white French New Wave of today? Well, like one great thing about this genre is it can be a period piece, but it's got to be something that's like, this is the advantage of black and white, right? Is that you can do things on a more efficient scale, but you can also still do things like a period piece or something that appears very classic, like a classic vibe to it. So you could do something like, his George McDonald's dramas that are basically, they're a little cheesy sometimes, but they're actually not. They're not like Little House on the Prairie or something.
Right.
They're
Right.
like, they're actually very meaningful, powerful dramas, in these paperbacks he's got. And they're like, on the Scottish moors and on the, in the heather and all this stuff. And it's great stuff. But guess what? You could do all of those as a Western. There's no reason you can't make many of these as Westerns. And they can be a lot more prescient today because we're thinking about themes like law and order. We're thinking about themes like civilization. We're thinking about themes like how do you live in a society in peace with other people, right? Because we're
Right.
losing all of this stuff in our society now. So we
Right.
got we got to dig back into a lot of what makes our civilization work. And I think we have to be purposeful about this. We have to be purposeful about like, well, there's a riot going on somewhere. Like people need to know what made the Roman Empire preferable to what came before it, right?
Right.
Because you had a citizen, you had a Roman citizen. That means you had a Roman military, and then you had people who dealt with citizens. Like you had different kinds of law, you had different kinds of citizens, you had this kind of civilization affects the way all of society behaves. And so today we're talking about stuff like, oh, let's let all these immigrants in and we'll just treat everybody the same. And like, you don't even understand what a citizen is. You know what I mean? Like they've lost all this understanding today. Um, and it's not to get too political, but it's like everybody is losing our understanding of our Western civilization.
Yeah.
And so something like a Western film reminds people, hey, if you were left with a six piece and a criminal, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you can't just kind of like rely on some politician who's like, oh, I'll solve all your problems. Like actually we have to deal with law and order. We have to deal with nature and how it works, nature and his God, right? And we have to deal with like, how are we going to behave when somebody's attacking us and harming us and we don't have a lawman to save us? What are you going to do? Now
Right.
now Dirty Harry has to show up, right? So these are all like really important themes and subjects to talk about today, and we're just not doing it. Like, and I think a lot of the reason is too is because a lot of these subjects are for men, right? They're not for the feminized church. The
Right.
feminized church isn't used to dealing with these subjects.
Yeah.
They
We
don't
do. We
even
have
think
rom
that.
coms. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't even think that way, you
Yeah.
know?
No. No. I give you like barely biblical for an example was one of those shows where the filmmaker, he's an accomplished Nickelodeon and Disney animator. He's got the resume, he's got the ability to make the content. And he came to us at a pitch-a-thon and was like, somebody told me I should pitch this to you because you'd be the only guys here that would uh, even be interested. And he's like, I just want to do the most violent Old Testament Bible stories told with teddy bears.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
we just thought it was brilliant. Like we were just
Yeah.
like, yes, right now, let's go. Well, I think Jason like went to the hotel lobby and had them print off a contract like immediately, right? Um, but that guy's been trying to pitch that show for years and everybody
Yeah.
ignored it. And for us, it was like an instant duh,
Yep.
right? And I think that, but the reason why they didn't want it is because, well, we don't think mothers are going to want violent cartoons for their kids. And he was like, I don't care what the mothers want. I'm a
Hmm.
dad and I want my kids watching these cartoons. because I
Yeah.
want them to learn how to fight and be a man and all the
Right.
masculinity that comes with that, you know. You know, it's the same principle of, you know, a Christmas Story with a Red Ryder BB gun, right? You know,
Yeah.
you'll shoot your eye out, and then, you know, eventually the dad
Oh,
got it for the son anyway.
yeah.
And so we've sort of really been cursed with this uh feminine film industry. And nobody talks about it, but like nobody wants to lose money and disrupt that industry. Nobody wants to lose their relationships, their friendships with people in Hollywood who don't really care about them, by the way. You
Hmm.
know, they act cordial. But but then when like you come out with a movie that's really controversial, like Kirk Cameron's Lifemark movie that he did with the Kendrick brothers. I don't know if you know about this, but
Yes.
you
I haven't
know,
seen it, but I heard about it.
none of the studios would distribute it,
Oh, I didn't know that.
right? They said they didn't want to touch abortion as a subject.
Oh,
This
I
is the
wonder
same
why.
studios that's distributing Fireproof, which right, and they're
Hmm.
courageous. Like the same studios don't want anything to do with it. They had to go and release the film at the Fathom event, and they lost a lot of money.
Mm.
Uh, but that's because you know the Kendrick brothers are at the mercy of what the distributors will let them do.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think it's wrong, especially if you're a Christian, a high net worth Christian, and you're investing in content or you want to invest
Absolutely.
in content. I think it's wrong to continue to perpetuate this sort of system that is
Hmm.
dependent on the Hollywood studios. And instead, we should be investing in building things that disrupt it, just like
Yes.
Uber did the taxi cab industry, right? And so, but you know, disruption isn't a nice word, and people don't like to use it because they're overly sensitive in that
There's
industry.
another word for that. It's art. That's
Yeah, art should be offensive. It
oh,
has to be. And so
we don't want that.
yeah,
We're so used to our propaganda.
yeah, and they don't have
Propaganda.
and they have
Good
zero
stuff.
cultural influence. They have zero. They've been around. You know, PureFlix has been around what maybe 20 years now, since
Hmm.
2010. So maybe almost coming up on 25 years, and they've done. They're working on like the fifth God is Not Dead movie. That comes out in September. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you know, no one's reading the signs of the times. I remember the weekend after the assassination attempt on Trump, like one Christian streamer was announcing their new like rom-com engagement movie or something. And I
Yeah.
was like, are you guys not reading the room? Like we were on the brink of a civil war, like millimeters away
Hmm.
from a civil war. People are still
They're
like
not paying
really
attention.
mad and trying to figure out what happened and how it happened. And you
Yeah.
guys are announcing a new rom-com movie, right? Like it's just it's ridiculous.
They
And
have to
but
recover from all of that stress.
yeah, but also too, like you have to think that like a lot of these Christian faith-based film institutions are intertwined with the left, whether that's Hollywood, you know, whether it's Sony or Lionsgate, which primarily distributes a lot of the
Hmm.
faith-based film stuff. You know, they're very intertwined and intermingled, and there's a lot of relationships at stake, and you know, but what you
Very
know, and then
sad. Very sad. I think
and
it's
there's
you're totally right.
yeah, and there's just tremendous desire to get red carpet invitations,
Mm.
right? You know, I went to a Christian film festival, and you could pay extra money for the ticket.
Oh, I
And
think I might have read this article. Did you put this on one of your articles?
I might have, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like a
So you
pretend
pay
red carpet.
it's like a cosplay red carpet,
Oh
and they
my
have like their
goodness.
own fake paparazzi. And I was like, what the heck is the point of this? Like, this is
Wow.
so stupid.
Selling
Uh,
smoke to these kids.
Yeah, it's
Just
just like, hey guys, see, we can do it too, and we can be accepted by the. It's like, no, you can't. You can't be accepted by
they
Hollywood.
have never been to LA. I bet you. They have never
The-
been, they've
yeah,
never
the only
seen this stuff.
right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
The only way to be accepted by Hollywood is to completely disrupt them and to have them come groveling to you for help.
Well, you have to
Um,
give up your morals and all your decency
or
to be
yeah, or
accepted.
you know, yeah, all that, you
You have
know,
to
go
do
to a
whatever they
Diddy
say.
party.
Like, yeah.
You can go to a Diddy party and you know, you can be accepted pretty quickly.
Oh my
But
goodness.
other than that, like there's no real way to be accepted by Hollywood. I don't think the Hollywood system is technically redeemable in the way people say. People are like, well, if I can just make a good movie,
I
make a
believed
lot of
that
money,
5 years ago.
Hollywood. You used to believe that, right? Yeah. I'll just make a good movie. It'll get a good box office run. I'll win the lottery ticket, the box office lottery ticket, and then Hollywood will come and like
Then, right,
do whatever
right.
I want. It's not true. It's
No.
not true. No one who works in Hollywood can do whatever they want. Not I don't even think even like the studio executives can, because they're so entrenched with the government and stuff.
Well, I was
So
doing it myself. I was trying as hard as I could to just like get whatever material I could get out there, right? And so eventually you realize it's kind of like you're turning your head, like corruption, right? You're just like, I'll just turn my head, right? And as long as I'm being accepted in the relationship, I don't mind about these other things,
yeah,
what they're doing over here,
yeah.
and
I
you
remember
realize that's
years
affecting your heart.
Yeah, I remember years ago with Atlanta, and I lived in Atlanta in that area.
Hmm.
And um I got I found a Craigslist gig for video work to do a reality sizzle reel for the manager of Outcast.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." And I applied and I got it. And so I went there and like I just followed them around all day or whatever. They got to the evening and they're like, "All right, next place we're going is a strip club." And I was like, "No, we're not." No, I'm not going to a strip club. And they were like, "Oh, okay, well, you don't have to go." And then they never contacted me again.
Yeah.
This was to tell people, I was like, "No, you're not going to be accepted by Hollywood, unless you start doing that stuff."
Yeah, you have to, right, exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
we got
yeah, I
those
was
a big we got a lot of those down here in Florida for sure.
yeah, and
Seedy, very
so
seedy environments, tell you.
yeah, and so uh, you know, the the truth is we just have to want to disrupt the industry and take it over, and it's a lot harder. It's a much bigger financial risk for investors for sure, because uh, you know, you're it's most likely not going to happen, and when it does happen, the return is probably going to be several years down the line or several
Yeah,
decades down the line, and you might not live long enough to see it. Your grandchildren might get the benefits of the equity, right?
right.
But you have to take those risks to push an industry forward. If you don't,
Hmm.
you're just always going to be this second rate. Yeah, I call Christian movies parodies of parodies because they're basically parodies of Hallmark
It's
movies, right?
a bad copy of
Yeah,
Hollywood. Yeah.
yeah. So they're not even Hallmark.
No,
At least Hallmark, yeah, I give them credit because or
they're
Lifetime.
original.
They're
Yeah.
they're original and they're self-aware and they
Yeah.
know they're cheesy and they do like the KFC rom-com as an ad. I don't know if you ever saw that, right? Where they did a whole rom-com about Colonel Sanders
That's
and
great. I
finding
didn't know about that, but that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's on YouTube, I think. Like Lifetime did it. And it was like who's the guy that was on Saved by the Bell, but now he's doing Entertainment Tonight? Or
Oh, I don't know.
Mario Lopez.
Lopez, he got in trouble, didn't he, for saying something?
Yeah, well, he played Colonel Sanders uh in the Lifetime Colonel Sanders, and then it wasn't until he found true love he found the secret recipe or something like that. Like that was the whole thing, and it was an ad, and you just go, I have so much respect for Lifetime for that because
Hmm.
they know exactly what they are,
Yep.
right? But if you try to say, hey, let's make a parody of Christian movies, um, I guess there was an attempt to do one, but it never got distribution. I think it was called Christian Movie. I don't know whatever happened to it. I was really excited. I was like, oh, finally.
I
But
did hear
that
about this. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I don't ever know what happened to it. Um, and it's because the Christian film industry takes themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And they're always going to be a laughing stock if
Hmm.
as long as they do that. And I don't think really people care. I don't think the people, because most of the people who invest in Christian film movies invest through nonprofit organizations, right?
No.
So they're
Yeah.
not really looking for a financial return anyway.
Right.
Um, or they're doing it because they just want more Christian movies. a lot of Christian investors in Christian movies invest so their daughter can get an acting gig, right? Like, and that's
Mhm.
part of the requirements of the investment.
Well, doesn't
That's
Sony own them now? Anyway, doesn't Sony own?
no, they were like they bought it and they're like, what the heck is this? And then they sold Pureflix to Great American.
Just get rid of
So they were
that.
like, oh,
Did I buy that?
yeah, yeah. And so
Oh well,
that's pretty much what I was told happened.
that
So I
makes
don't,
sense.
that's just kind of but they do they still own a significant portion. They just gave up majority control, I think, to Great
Right,
American.
right.
And Great Americans just dived in to the rom-com stuff. To be fair, Bill Abbott's
That's
really good at it.
that's a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got Candace Cameron Bure,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Abbott started Hallmark. Like they know that.
Right.
And so I I'm not like I don't think I love cheesy rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're great and it serves a purpose. But that can't just be the only thing. When you say this is what a Christian movie is, like
Right.
that's
Right.
and when you reject anything that's outside of that because that's not a Christian movie, you're lying to the audience. And I don't think they're lying about they know what they're doing.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
think I'm talking about like pre-Great American Pureflix, pre-Sony
Yeah.
Pureflix. They knew that they were just taking money from older women and
Sure.
trying to get enough subscribers to sell to Sony. That was the plan
That's the name
all
of the
along.
game. Yeah.
But it's created this image in people's minds, even in Christians' mind, that that's what a Christian movie is. And if you go outside of it, the audience gets upset
Yeah.
and freaks out and says, "Hey, you can't do that."
Yeah.
But
It's so upsetting.
but it's like Henry Ford said, they'll always want a faster horse. So the
Yeah.
only way to do it is to really like push everything out, like
Mhm.
on purpose. So fix my mic.
Yeah. I saw your mic there.
So um hopefully that stays. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
We should talk about the genre at some point because I'm one of those people like I understand the market to a degree to where I don't care whatever people call me. What I just want to be able to do is be authentic as an artist.
yeah,
And so like as long as you're able to do that, nobody can really stop you from doing that. It's just the question of whether the marketplace can kind of like tolerate you and push you out there. And if they will, then maybe you'll make some money. But if they're not, if they won't, and this is where we've been, right? Where we've been is kind of like the Kendricks have kind of like shepherded us forward since Mel Gibson. And then like now the Irwin brothers are shepherding us because they have more of a Hollywood style, so they're being more successful.
yeah,
And but the problem is that we're not really like growing out of our seams. We're not really like expanding our style too much. We're still like in like biopics and stuff like this.
right,
And so we're not really, but see what happens when Angel puts out Sound of Freedom is it's like it's marketed like an action film, right?
yeah,
It's more of a thriller, but it's marketed like an action film and it does gangbusters, right? We're
yeah,
just like, oh, this is a social commentary film.
yeah,
It's talking about something Hollywood doesn't like. So there's kind
yeah,
of like almost like reverse demographics here. There's like a reverse thing where oh hey Hollywood doesn't like it, that means I'm going to watch this thing, right? And so it's Hollywood's actually marketing the film by now for us. And so this is a good thing. This kind of like almost like this kind of like animosity being built between Angel and Hollywood is something that I really value because I
yeah,
really think that something's being done here. And it's not just Angel, right? It's people, you guys, it's Daily Wire, it's people who are saying, you know what, we're going to challenge you guys. And because what you're doing is leaving a bunch of money on the table. And we see that.
right,
We're not idiots. You're leaving money on the table. You're leaving shelf space for someone else to pick up in theaters and you're making some huge, enormous blunders and errors. But because you're a conglomerate, that's some global conglomerate, you don't care if your films lose money.
right,
Like we're not that way. But what we do care about is the culture itself. We do care about the stories. If we could
right,
take Lord of the Rings back from you, we would. We
right,
just don't have the money to do that yet. But what we see is there's product, there's IP, there's real storytelling that we can do. And, if we can just sneak it in there, whether it's in the theaters or whatever it is, people will see that there's real art happening still, even though Hollywood doesn't believe in it, even though the pure flixes don't believe in it, right? There's people who believe in it. And so I think people like us are going to be picking up that money on the table that they're leaving. And hopefully they will keep doing that. They'll just keep going their
Yeah.
own way and they'll keep leaving shelf space for us to pick up.
Yeah.
And we can just
Well,
build
that's going to
IP.
happen. It's just that, you know, with all the money the Angels bringing in, all the money the Daily Wire's got, Irwin Brothers got, they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hmm.
Um, and the problem is there's not that incubation talent pool to be able to sustain that for any
Right.
long period of time. And also, none of the projects, whether it's The Chosen or Sound of Freedom or whatever, has created long-term cultural impact. Right? So, uh, I don't ever hear anybody talking about The Chosen season 4. Very few conversations about that. I don't know anybody that's a diehard fan of that. I know they're out there. I'm just saying, like, in the young male circles that I run in, they're not watching that.
Okay. Yeah.
Sound of Freedom did really well, and then they did Sound of Hope,
Yeah.
and
Not so good.
then nobody cared because biopics exist in a single cultural moment. So
Hmm.
these are not these are not films that build lasting IP, or even culture. So when I think of culture, I think of, like, what's the Christian version of Veggie? Like, where's the Veggie Tales at anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, you would go to the mall, people would have Veggie Tales on their T-shirts. You'd go to Chick-fil-A and get a kids meal, and they'd give you some sort of Veggie Tale toy, or
Right.
a cassette tape with the music on it, or a CD with the music on it. We had that with Adventures in Odyssey,
Hmm.
um, right? Especially in the '90s. McGee and Me, everything that focused on the family was doing. Like, we had, like, legitimate culture.
Sure.
Um, so much so now
Could have been better,
that there
but
it could have been better, but it was ours,
hmm.
right? Like,
Right.
we had it and it was influential, and so much so now that popular YouTubes are, like, finding these old VHS tapes with Gerbert and doing commentary on this show,
Yeah.
and joking on how cheesy it was.
Uh-huh.
But it was like, people don't understand, like, those were, like, culturally dominant institutions.
Yeah.
Um, and
They were
and
decent works.
Yeah, it's like, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese when I was in high school, and they would play silly songs with Larry. They actually had a licensing deal to play the song
Yeah,
with
that's
Larry
right. They had
at
good
Chuck E. Cheese.
music.
So yeah, so and then now Phil Vischer, who created VeggieTales, is this massive woke leftist, who hates
Yeah.
anything with conservatism at all. And he's
Captured.
the one, yeah, he's the one that said, "Oh, we need to be more nuanced about abortion." I'm like, isn't your market kids programming? What is wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
right? So
It's just how they kill the baby. That's important. It's
yeah,
how.
it's yeah, it's how we got to be nuanced, right? And so, it's and
Bad
so
joke.
we've lost those institutions. Hollywood comes in, buys up the IP, and I don't know why Phil Vischer turned into such an open leftist, but
Yeah.
my theory is that he just really wants to stay associated with an IP, and
Captured.
if he
Yep.
starts condemning le, leftist, he won't be the voice of Bob the Tomato anymore. They'll swap him out. And so, uh, that's my theory. Or he's just always been that way, and whatever.
Either way,
But
it's pretty sad. Yeah.
yeah, either way, so the point is, we need to build. I want to build cultural IP that's the equivalent to, like, Rick and Morty,
Hmm.
where you see kids wearing Rick and Morty shirts, but that's a show that endorses staunch nihilism.
Yeah.
Um, right? And so, but, like, the Christian version of a Rick and Morty, or even a more broadly, it doesn't have to be Christian, even more broadly conservative version, like what of Rick and Morty, like what are we creating that has significant cultural capital outside of, you know, the box office,
Yeah, there's little
right?
walled gardens, right? Like Daily Wire, they have the Bent Key, and they're forming this little walled garden of some decent stuff. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're a subscriber to Bent Key.
No,
My
I know
kids,
about it, Mickey.
my kids watch it every Sunday because it's one of
Okay.
the few things I can actually just hit play and then I can just walk out of the room. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like generally I can't do that with my kids.
Yeah, but
So
Benke still targets the 35-year-old moms. Like that's right. So that's the market.
mostly
Yeah, mostly. And so, they just basically copied the PureFlix model and said, "Hey, let's make, our own PureFlix thing." But they also do stuff like "What is a Woman?" and this new one that's coming out, and "Am I a Racist?" which is amazing, right? A lot of that, we talked about Saturday Night Live. A lot of that is because I heard Matt Walsh was actually an improv comic, and
I can believe it.
he couldn't find anywhere to do conservative commentary, conservative comedy, so he went into conservative political commentary instead.
Not a bad
But I think
plan if, if that's true.
not a
It
bad
worked.
plan. And now he's able to actually come out and do this sort of improv stuff, which I think he's great at.
He
And
is.
so I'm excited for those. But again, those are documentaries. Those are going to exist in one moment in time.
Right,
And they're going to be
right.
big hits. But they're not going to be, they're not going to exist outside of that.
Hmm.
So,
You know what I think you guys need to do? I know this is kind of like presumptuous of me to give you advice. I have no idea how the inner workings of your company works. So please forgive me if I come out
I'll
with a
take
lot.
all the advice I can get.
We were talking about incubators, we're talking about helping artists, we're talking about getting IP. Like I think there's two directions we have to go. There's two directions because how I make plans. I make plan A, plan B, whatever. But
Yeah.
like the two plans to me are the in-person incubator. You need to have
Yeah.
you can't, like SNL, right? You can't really do that improv comedy without being in person.
Right.
So like our churches need to step up, and the churches are going to tell us men to step up. Well, I'm going to tell them to step up. The churches need to step up and support some artists, communities to grow. They
Yeah.
just have to do that.
Well,
Like I'm sorry,
one
I'm
of the
not going to work
things,
for your audio, video, visual team, okay, to
yeah,
point the camera at the preacher. Okay, I'm not going to do that. What I'll do instead is try to make art.
yeah,
And if the pastor will support me and allow me to have 2 hours a week in that room, then maybe I could make some stuff, right? If he'll
yeah,
allow you to have 2 hours in this sanctuary to like make some improv comedy and film it,
yeah,
then it's
yeah,
like now they're like contributing to our community. And
yeah.
if they're not willing to do that, then
I, 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 I think that the church definitely needs to support the artists. I think though there's there's a sort of art that can't be made in a church. And not well, the best way to put that is, there's a difference between clean comedy, let's say Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Mhm.
And church comedy. Those are two separate categories. And
No
a
kidding.
lot of, yeah, and I've spoken to really amazing church comics, and they hate having to do comedy in the church.
It's not
Uh,
easy.
but
Yeah.
yeah, because it has to be made with the approval of the church ladies, right? And so,
But what
um,
what what did the Mormons do? What did
but
Angel Studios do, right? They're
right,
just like, hey, make
meanwhile,
they
the
make the
church.
veneer of clean comedy, but they've got some offensive stuff.
That's
Like,
right. That's right. And so yeah, Dry Bar is really good for that. But also still all those comics, they're practicing for their Dry Bar routines at CD comedy clubs,
of course,
right?
where else
So
can they practice?
exactly, that's the point. So So and that's because comedy clubs have this reputation for comedians are going to come up and they're going to fail and they're going to
They're gonna
bomb.
bomb.
That's
That's
part of the show. And that's why Kill Tony is like the number one podcast in the country right now, where it's just comics failing for 2 hours straight.
that I've heard
Um,
that as the explanation for how you become a comic is you just got to be good at bombing. Like
yeah, you got to be good at bombing.
if
Yeah,
you
you got
enjoy
to,
bombing, you'll do great, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And so, but yeah, so that's, I mean, so, but I also think like the same thing is true, like a church movie, like the Kendrick brothers do. They will tell you they are making movies in this style and format for this audience. They know
Right?
that's what they do, and they don't want to stray outside of that. And I don't think they should have to.
No.
Their movie started in a church, but then you have, there's so much more kinds of content and stories to be told that fit in that narrative uh,
Mhm.
within our that are for our audience that might not necessarily be something church sponsored media
Mhm.
would create. That doesn't mean it's any less evil
Right.
or any more evil or bad or bad to watch or whatever. It just means the stories are not necessarily conducive to a church environment.
Mhm. Well, I was talking about two plans, remember? Not to
Yeah.
get past what you were saying, but because we're kind of talking about these at least I'm thinking about these two different plans of how to improve our community. And one of them is in person where you're getting to know people and you're building this community together and you're
Yeah.
bombing, right? And you're making mistakes and you're showing some Christian grace to each other. What is that? Oh, grace. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we can do that to artists too. Oh, you didn't know that. Oh, okay. Like we can do that, like Christians can fail and mess up and you can let them continue failing. So a lot of this, obviously, the church needs a different attitude about a lot of this.
Yeah.
Like Bezalel made the temple. He wasn't even a Jewish guy. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, we needed to like realize that the church does not have to hire Christians everywhere they go. Like, you were talking about the Chosen before and how there was this. Remember how there's this scandal of this guy with the LGBT flag,
Yeah.
the
Right.
camera guy, and everybody went up in arms, and I'm like, have you
Right.
ever worked in LA? You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and often these things you can't stop these things. So like
Yeah.
people they get so precious
Well,
about
you
things.
could if you were non-union.
Yes, yes. You
Yeah,
know,
it could be done.
no, it
Um,
can be done for sure.
I think I think the scandal of the cameraman, it's like, okay, you got a guy, he's openly gay. I think the problem was really more so his Instagram was like mocking being on the set of The Chosen as a gay person. And it's like, so
The
he's
other way
like,
around, yeah.
yeah, it's sort of like it's like, don't they have an anti-disparaging clause to work, but
Yeah.
I think you're always going to have those instances where you have people who are working on set who might not be a Christian.
Hmm.
That's fine, but they have to realize, hey, we're making this for a specific audience
Yes.
and we're not going to tolerate behavior just in the same way
Right.
they wouldn't tolerate, like you wouldn't see, I doubt if you made a movie where uh like I doubt, so we're making a movie called The Lesbian and the Lumberjack, and it's
Oh,
about a lesbian who realizes she's not gay, she's never met a real man before. I doubt that guy would want to work on set of
It's
that
funny.
movie. So the
that's
way to
great.
stop it is just to make movies that repulse them and they don't want to be a part of, just like they make movies that repulse us and we
Of
don't want to be a
course.
part
Of
of.
course.
And so, but if we're trying to build these just sort of broad, anti-fragile films that don't really
Yeah, for
offend
everybody.
anybody,
Well, that's what we've
then
been doing. Our fleet's been traveling as fast as the slowest vessel,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
the old 65-year-old grandma in the back who's like, I don't like that.
right, yeah.
We
And
can't
so
be listening to
And
that.
so, in regards to your community, one of the things we do at Lore, and we're hoping to ramp up again, is we want to do monthly in-person filmmaker gatherings all over the country. So one in Atlanta, in Florida, or whatever. And we've done it. We've done one in Texas, in LA, Nash, several times in Nashville area.
Nice.
And so the plan is just to do that more. And we usually have like whiskey and cigars and just
Ooh,
get to meet everybody and hang out. And
I like that. You
th
get to offend a
that's
lot of people. That's
yeah. Well, our idea is
offend
like
all the
if
right
you
people.
yeah, our idea is like if you're afraid of being around people that drink whiskey and smoke cigars, then you probably have pretty cowardly stories to tell,
Hmm.
that are,
Wheat
you know,
sauce.
so the people that aren't afraid to come and show up at those events usually have pretty great stories that they want to tell. And we've met amazing people who work at very high levels in Hollywood that you would recognize their projects and stuff. Just tremendous work.
That's great. I'd
And they all
love to
come to
go.
those events.
I'd
Yeah.
love to
And
go.
so, yeah,
Can I
so
bring my
we'll
pipe?
announce those.
Can I bring a pipe?
You can. Yeah, I actually have my pipe right here, actually. So,
Oh, nice. Yeah, I
yeah.
can't
So,
do cigars. I don't know why. I think
that's
is
totally fine. Yeah.
I
So
like pipes. Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah, man. So that I mean, so I would just encourage all your listeners to subscribe to Lore TV, LOOR.TV. You can get a free
That's
7-day
right.
trial, but I'd recommend holding on to it for about 3 to 4 months and watch as
Oh, cool.
content fills up on the platform. And right now we're funding the second episode of Barely Biblical. And every dollar you give to that show is 3x'd. So if you give $5, it counts as 15.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
That's
so
great.
we're doing that to fund the second episode, the $20,000 that's needed to to fund that episode. So
Very cool.
uh, yeah, so that's what we're doing now. And
How do I
I would
find
have
out
all,
about these meetings? How do I find out about you
well,
guys's
we'll announce them in emails when we're ready to do them.
oh, okay, so they're for subscribers to find out about it.
No, you can subscribe to the email without being, you can just go on the
Oh, I
website
didn't
and
know that.
subscribe to our email
Okay.
list. Yeah. But yeah, we'll send them out and I'll post it on my LinkedIn and stuff the next time we do it. So
Okay.
right now we're just like in an investment phase and we're raising money for investment. And then once we get that investment, we'll do some events. So
Very cool. Yeah, just wanted to say before we wrap up, the other part of that thing I think we need to do is develop as much good IP as we can using good writers and good kind of like filmmakers.
yeah,
And so like that obviously that doesn't have to happen in person, but I think there has to be some kind of thing, kind of like what we're doing now, where you could have Zoom meetings that are regular and you're talking to these screenwriters around the country and you're asking everybody for their monthly update on how they're doing on their scripts and their IP. And so I don't know, maybe this is something you do already with your filmmakers, but it's like,
we do have meetings with our current filmmakers all the time. And hope to do that more. And then the main focus right now is just getting content funded on the platform. So
good,
the more content that gets funded on the platform, the easier it is for new subscribers to subscribe because they'll go, oh yeah, there's content on here to watch.
good.
And so that's really the main focus and the main goal. And then we're going to be building apps and all sorts of other stuff as well to expand the reach. And so all that just requires investors who aren't cowards and want to push the industry forward. So
Hard to find, hard to find.
yeah, it's amazing. They're all over the left, you know.
You might
So
need to shake down Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel!
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind.
Well, how do I interview with some of your filmmakers?
Uh, email Jason, our chief
Okay.
content officer, and he'll get you in contact. And he would love to have some of our filmmakers on your show. I'm sure.
I need to interview with him anyway because I wanted to talk with him about Passing Period and
About what?
his little short film called Passing Period or something. It's like a high
Oh,
school
passing
film.
period. Passing
Yeah.
period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the next thing he's working on now, and the whole series takes place in the locker room in the hallway of a
Yeah.
school. So it's just like one scene. Every every scene is a different time during the day in school in that hallway. It's a
I
great
helped
idea.
I invested on his little project, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so you have his email, and I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll put you in touch with whoever. So
That's great. Thank you so much, Marcus.
yeah,
Like I
he
love
also
talking to people on a
he
real level,
also has
like just
worked.
being
He
real.
also is working on and worked with Netflix on a project based on Dante's Inferno. So you could have that whole conversation with him
I
since you
did read
referenced.
about that.
I
Yes,
didn't bring it up
I'm going
because
to
I'm not
stop
knowledgeable
the
about
screen
Dante's
now because
Inferno enough to carry a conversation on.
we pretty much wrapped it up after that. Well, how long was that so far? What do you think?
How long was that?
Yeah, what was that? Over an hour?
I don't have a timeline
I don't even know. I think it might have been about an hour. But so what are
yet.
some things that you picked up on that like did you enjoy the interview?
I thought it was an amazing interview. I thought it was great. You guys hit on so many good notes
We really did.
of content and this idea of the creativity incubator and
That was a very important point I think he brought up.
yeah, and the IPs and I don't know, I felt a little informed
Mhm.
about PureFlix and there's definitely something uh, yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, there's a
I
lot there. And he obviously has a lot of knowledge about these platforms. And I think that they've positioned themselves in a unique place. Remember when I was talking about like their technology behind the counter of what they're trying to do? One of the things I was going to say there, but I wasn't quite sure how to say it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't say it because it might have sounded like a bad thing. But one of the things I was concerned about is that they were being too much like Netflix. And because what we're seeing now and what we've actually been seeing for years now, but a lot of people just haven't admitted it in Hollywood, is that the Netflix model only seems to work for Netflix. It doesn't seem to work for anybody else. And the reason is because Netflix has had years to build up their income based on other people's IP when they were a mail-in platform. So when they would mail in like videos and stuff, they did that for years. And so it's no wonder then that they are the premier streaming platform because they basically invented streaming, and they came before streaming. And so they already had all these customers, they already had this built-in audience just to their brand before even video streaming existed. And so a lot of these people, whether it's Peacock or Disney Plus or whoever, they're trying to like capture this same thing in a bottle, and they don't realize that it wasn't lightning. It wasn't like some kind of chance event. Netflix had been building up for years, over a decade, building up this cachet. Um, so what I get concerned about is that just like the Daily Wire, that they have put too many eggs in the basket of streaming, the streaming model, and they, like this SVOD, which is a subscription VOD. And what they're not realizing is that barely none of these platforms have made money. Like they're just, it's kind of like a hope, like a pie in the sky kind of hope that because they're controlling all this IP, that eventually it'll pay off and they can keep their expenses low, etc. But the truth is that Hollywood perfected how to make money on IP for decades before Netflix came around. And in my view, if the studios went away and there was just Netflix, it would decimate Hollywood. Like if it would just like people would basically it would kind of really affect culture badly, in my view, if the studios were no longer doing what they're doing, because the studios still have a remnant of old Hollywood and what Hollywood was about, which was more about culture really than just putting stuff up on the internet, like on this platform, you know. And so like these walled, I call them walled gardens, but they're basically like these streaming platforms are like controlling all this IP, and then they're just charging a streaming fee every month, and they think that this is enough, but really they buy into this rat race. They just have to continue making more and more content, right? And and their hope is that as they continue making content, then they'll get more subscribers every month. And but the problem is that's I think there are theories on this, because it's still fairly new that they're admitting there's a problem there. They've been buying into this model for so long. But I think the problem with it is that eventually you make enough mistakes and then your brand suffers. And then it doesn't matter how many good things you put out on Netflix or who or wherever on your platform, people are going to start dropping off like flies. So you're basically all these this IP has been put under your own branding. Like your branding has become the primary branding. The studios were not that way for years. Like you would watch a film and it didn't matter what studio was putting out this film. It was always about the IP. It was always about the actor. It was about the story, and so and the cultural elements of these films that were coming out in theaters. It wasn't about which studio put it out. Like nobody cared which studio put it out. But now, because of these streaming platforms, the branding of the platform becomes more important than each individual project. Because why? Because you can tell just the way that the way Netflix treats their IP, they completely control it. And so that, it comes at the expense of the potential future of this IP. So like, for example, one of the things I think Angel did well was that and this probably was because they were working with The Chosen, but The Chosen's stated mission is to just have ubiquity of their show, of The Chosen. And so, in a way, their mission is not to make a bunch of money. It's for like 1 billion people to watch it. Like literally, that's their mission. And so they will put out their show like on almost any platform. They don't care. They're not precious about it. So that I think is a far better, more powerful vision than come to Netflix and you can watch our latest show or movie. And every month it's come to Netflix, you can watch our latest, come to Netflix, you can watch our latest. Like, and then at a certain point you're like, yeah, but that's Netflix. You know what I mean? Like, and so if Netflix does something wrong, all of that IP can become dirtied by that, right? And so that's just my theory on it is that these streaming platforms have put their own branding above their IP. And this is a huge mistake. Instead, what they should be doing is you can create content and you can have IP and you can control it and stream it, but you should never be precious about your IP. And you shouldn't be putting your own branding above your IP. Instead, you should make great IP and then put it out on your platform, but also put it out in other places. Put it out in theaters, put it out on other platforms, right? And so that's going to create more ubiquity with your IP, which really is what Hollywood is. Hollywood is not about the studios, it's about IP. And so as your IP becomes stronger and becomes ubiquitous, then that's what gives you profits, that's what gives you, staying power. So that's just my theory on that. But what I think the future of all this isn't even the studios anymore because the studios have kind of squandered their advantage by embracing all this terrible IP. They don't even understand good storytelling anymore. So although they do still have all the money, so they can still hire great storytellers. So they still kind of they haven't lost their brains yet. They haven't lost their mind yet completely, but they're on the verge of like losing what makes them great. And I think what Angel has done well is to understand the real weakness of Hollywood. And the real weakness is the fact that their IP no longer has vitality anymore. And the reason is because they have artists who continue to kind of parrot their philosophies instead of just making good art, right? So their own ideologies have weakened their IP, basically, which Hollywood is IP. So they're gonna just continue to weaken their own influence in the culture as they become more propagandistic. But the strength of Angel is the crowdfunding. And so it doesn't matter where you go, whether you're Kickstarter or Lore, because Lore does a form of crowdfunding, or your Angel. If you have a good relationship with the fans in your crowdfunding platform, then you can continue to build your IP in a new, vital, vibrant, powerful way. And so it's because the strength of your IP is really about your fans. Like that's really what it is. It's a relationship between the creators and the fans. And so as you respect that relationship and you build more things that your fans want, then you're going to just keep strengthening that relationship. So crowdfunding does that like nothing else. I mean, it's
Well, I especially like the way they do it with The Chosen because
yeah.
you've already got this built-in idea of hey, you can give us some money and that will pay for someone else to watch it.
Yeah,
And
it's a
so
great idea.
it constantly puts you in this mindset. I mean, this is really a Christian idea anyways.
It
So
sure
it
is.
puts you in this mindset of like, I'm checking off two boxes in my list of my Christian to-do list today. I'm
Mhm.
evangelizing by paying for someone to watch a show about Jesus, and I'm being charitable by paying for someone to watch a show about
There you
Jesus. So
go. There you
it
go.
fits right in with that.
Hmm.
Um, and
It's a
and so
great
that works.
vision.
It works really well. I feel like it works well, better than a lot of the other things that I do see on Angel Studios. Um, and it's pretty exciting. And so I like this idea too with Lore. Um, and their format is different. They do what is it, $15? Or what
14,
is the
yeah, 14 a
subscription?
month.
14 a month, and then you can kind of decide where you want it to go.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they do is they convert your $14 a month into a weekly kind of like virtual currency, and that's
Hmm.
called loot. And so then you're applying that weekly loot to the show that you want to get that money. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like you have a little account, right? Let's say this is Kickstarter, right? It's like
Mhm.
Kickstarter has a monthly account, right? That you've got that you started with them. And every week you get to like log into Kickstarter and be like, I want my $14 to go to this show, or I want my $14 to go to that product, and they
Hmm.
just apply it to that thing.
Yeah.
And Lore has this thing also where it's kind of like running a special or something, where it's like if a show is on blitz mode or whatever they call it, then if you apply that money, then you're getting 2 to 3 times the worth for it. So it's kind of like creating an incentive to be involved in that community more.
Yeah. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's like matching funds or something, you know?
It gets you involved.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what works with the way The Chosen encourages their followers to pay it forward
Hmm.
because because you're getting involved
Right.
and with a cause that you already agree with. And
Yeah.
so Um, I think that makes sense with lore that you're not just paying a subscription like with Netflix.
Hmm.
And then, when we had Netflix, we'd pay like at first it was exciting. Felt like
Hmm.
we won the entertainment lottery
Yeah.
and
Right.
now we could watch hours and hours and hours,
Thousands.
stay up so late watching all this stuff,
Right.
the teeny tiny little amount of money every month.
Hmm.
And then after a while, I realized I'm not really into any of the like I'm not
I'm not
these
gonna watch
shows.
this stuff.
I don't want to watch this show. This show
Yeah.
isn't for me. I didn't pick it. I don't want to just watch whatever Netflix makes for me.
Yeah.
So I like this idea with lore that you can say, like, I want to see that. I want to see
I want to
Barely
support this.
Biblical
Yeah.
or whatever the hot lore show is.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
they have a few pretty cool sh looking shows.
Yeah.
But I think what they do need to do, and this is one thing that Marcus mentioned that, and he treated it like it was a negative thing, but I don't think it is. He said that Angel is primarily a marketing platform. And I was like, exactly. That's what Hollywood is. Like, so they've learned from Hollywood enough to know this is actually how it works. Like, it's kind of like the studios are basically saying, look, we have a humongous marketing platform here. We're just going to give you some of our money, filmmaker, and you make the film. And then we go to work then and we do all the marketing and we distribute it. So, I mean, it basically is marketing and distribution is what they do. And so then they put it all out there and then they even, might monetize it in a variety of ways, you know. And that's basically what that is as well. It's basically like marketing and distribution. So, Angel has learned enough from Hollywood to know how this works, you know? And so that's actually what we need to be doing more of is more marketing and trying to control our distribution efforts better. Because
Yeah.
you mentioned a Lifemark, this film that was an anti-abortion film, and it basically got gagged and shoved away because somebody didn't want to talk about that subject. It's too scary of a subject.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of weak sauce. That's not even making art. Like that's just kind of like political decisions. And people shouldn't be doing that. So instead what you're getting is like someone controlling the message too much and it's becoming propaganda. So what we need is people who can learn the strengths of Hollywood and get rid of the weaknesses of Hollywood, right? So you want people who are not interested in all the political messaging of Hollywood, but you want people who understand marketing and understand distribution and understand that good art is undeniable. You can't just like um, turn your nose up at good art and be like, yeah, but I don't like them or whatever. Well, they've got good IP and that's valuable, you know. So, you know,
Yeah.
so the incubator, I think that Marcus is talking about is going to be really important in the coming years.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I liked what you said too about Conwave. I know we've talked about that before, but I really
Yeah.
liked the way you said that.
I try to like inspire people, like leave a seed of like, hey,
Yeah.
this could happen.
Yeah. And I liked how it really felt like there was an open invitation to creators and to filmmakers um
Yeah,
to bring something.
right.
I mean, I was like, hmm.
Yeah, like why
I got a
not, right?
show idea. Like everybody's got a show idea, right? Everyone's got a movie
Hmm.
idea.
Well, they've
Um,
got me excited too. And the thing is, I didn't want to talk to him about my filmmaking efforts. I didn't want to do
mhm,
that. I wanted to just have an introduction to like what we do and let them talk about what they do and talk about like the future of the industry in general, right? Because I think
mhm,
that that's a pretty important conversation to have. I could talk about my own precious like filmmaking, storytelling ideas till the cows come home later. But like, because problem with that is that a lot of it's theoretical. But like a lot of this stuff I wanted to talk to him about is not theoretical. It's like this is like what they've invested all their money in. And they're creating platforms so that we can have artists and filmmakers and storytellers all around the world have voiced their opinion. And that's pretty important, like so but I knew, right, if we have a relationship forming and we really respect the same things and we value the same things. Like I know that I'll be able to have a conversation with him again after this and maybe talk to Jason as well because
mhm,
these guys really seem to respect the craft.
mhm,
Like I haven't seen a lot of their own personal work. I don't know what their personal work looks like, but they're more like CEOs right now. So what they need is what they have, which is a vision to make something happen. And so I'm really glad that these guys are around because
Me too.
like I wouldn't be able to talk to Jeremy Boring, like on he's not going to talk to me on probably on this.
Mm.
Well, who knows? But like and or the Harmon brothers or whatever, that could happen. I don't know. But like I just got to hand it to these guys for giving me, 5 minutes to be like let's talk about your platform, like
Yeah.
honest. And so like, I wasn't super critical, but and I do think they should go more into the whole crowdfunding effort, and they should also look at um film for later, like theatrical at some point. Um, but like well, I think if I could say my biggest thing I think that they should do um, is that they need to grow communities that are um, not just for artists, right? Like the incubator, but they're also for fans. Like they need to grow fan communities, like almost like fan-led communities. And that's what crowdfunding mostly does. It's
Hmm.
motivating and mobilizing
Yeah.
your fan base, you
Yeah.
know. And so like I think they need a platform that can do that,
Hmm.
you know. So Angel in a way is basically a crowdfunding platform,
Hmm.
you know. But what they've done is they've learned where to put most of their crowdfunding stuff, which is actually like on social media. They don't keep all that stuff on their site. What they do on their site is their site is looks like Netflix or something. But then they have a section for like, hey, you can invest here, or you could see the impact our films are making, or you could do these other things, which are all great. And Netflix has nothing on that. Like Netflix can't hold a candle to what Angel's messaging is. Angel's messaging is we want to make a difference in the world. Netflix has nothing like that. They couldn't even
No.
hope to say something like that in society. So they don't
So,
really have a voice in society. They're just like, we're just Hollywood execs. Like,
yeah.
like you're nobody to me.
So if I went to the Angel Studios site, um, so like our kids, they love the Tuttle Twins.
Yeah,
And
they're great.
I'm curious about that show. Like it's really well made. It's incredibly well written. Um, and I'm just wondering, like, was this something that was voted on by the 35-year-old moms? Like was this a show that people said, like, yeah, I want to see you make Tuttle Twins? Or was this something where Netflix was, or sorry, or was this something where Angel Studios was like, our audience, we believe our audience wants to see Tuttle Twins, so we're gonna make it.
No, like basically how Angel works is they have a group of people who vote first. And those people are called the guild. And I'm actually part of
Okay.
the guild. Because
Right.
basically to be on the guild, you basically are a subscriber. Like you're
Yeah.
a subscriber on the guild. And then you get the ability, and then they ask you like a few questions or something, and then you basically get the ability to see stuff that hasn't been released to the public.
Okay.
And so I can do that on my iPad right over there if I want
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
I set it up on my iPad to where I can watch it and um like there's a movie, a documentary on there that I want to finish watching. It's really good. Um and so I'm hoping that that gets put out there in theaters even. I think it's really, really great. But like at some point, like I wasn't part of Angel in the beginning years. I have no idea what that looked like on their site, but I believe it was the same deal where it was a group of people. It's kind of like the fan base of a crowdfunding platform. And so
Mhm.
like those people are getting special emails, they're getting special contact from straight from Angel. and Angel is saying, what do you think of this? Vote for this. You know, their primary question has been, does this amplify light? And so
Okay. Yeah.
like it's kind of like it's a smart wording because they
Yeah.
don't want to appeal to any one religious group or
Yeah.
any one political group or something. They're trying to like make it to where it's like this is just a general statement that's good and positive in the world,
Yeah.
positive impact, you know. And
Okay.
so you can basically, if you can with a good conscience say, yes, this amplifies light, that means something, you know. And that project is going to have greater impact than just like some random Netflix thing that some executive liked. You know, so that's number one is that's the first thing that way Angel is different is that they agree on the beginning that this project is going to amplify light. And then number two, then what they do is they look for interest. They're gauging interest from the public on if
Okay.
they will spend money to invest on this product. Right. And so at that point, you say, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I would give this amount of money. And what they're doing is trying to get enough yeses. It's like another type of vote, except it's put your money where your mouth is, right? So people are they're putting like IOUs out there basically and saying, I will pay this amount it if you get enough interest. And
Yeah.
then once it gets enough interest, it goes to the next stage, which is actually raising funds.
Yeah.
So it's many steps. And the beauty of this is some people might look at it and go like, that's too complicated. That's too many
Mhm.
steps. No, you don't understand. This is what building a fan base is.
Yeah.
It's
It
getting through people a lot of steps of like, yes, I agree to this. Yes, I agree to that. And yes, I agree to that. So what you're doing is finding your real fans, the ones who will go through all those hoops and
it
engage. Like this is engagement, you know?
yeah, it really works because we saw the trailer for David
Hmm.
and I think I even showed it to my daughter, which I normally wouldn't do that, but we watched it and she was
David's
just like,
worthy.
it
Yeah.
was so good. And then I just found myself every couple months I would just look it up and be
Yeah.
like, what's going on with that? So
Yep.
it makes sense when you have a project that's good enough, that's really touching people, they're gonna invest in it. They're gonna be thinking about it and be wanting to see it and wanting to know what happens with it.
You just know after seeing David, you know there's no way this film is not going to make $1 billion. There's just no way. This film is going to make $1 billion and more because it's just so good. Like the animation is incredible. The story is just bar none. Like they did nothing wrong with the story whatsoever. In fact, they brought out themes of David's youth that you just didn't even think of and how that could work with animation. And so as soon as they do that, you're like, oh, wow, like this is a real vision. You know,
Yeah.
these guys have a real vision for David, and they've obviously worked on this a great deal and they've put all of their money in the right places with quality of animation and
Mhm.
storytelling. You know, so you're just like, I know if I give them $1,000 to to do that, which I haven't invested anything in David, but I've thought about it. Like if I did, I know we would get it back, no problem.
Mm.
You know, so and that's a rare thing, really. I'd like to see more of that on the lore platform where there's these filmmakers who have like been working on this project for years or people who, for example, like there's really great books out there that are Christian books and these authors need to get together with filmmakers and be like, let's make a short film and then we'll submit it to lore.
Hmm.
I bet a lot of them would do well,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I've talked about this incessantly, like the different ways Christian filmmakers could put, stuff from George MacDonald to like Conwave to like a variety of ways Christian filmmakers could just like get through those bottlenecks of like, this is the reason I can't do this film or whatever. Like I've been through almost all of those bottlenecks. And I haven't produced my first feature yet, but I could probably produce it in the next year. produce one. Because I've gone through so many like difficult issues, you know, but I, I don't know. I just really feel like lore has a ton of potential because these guys have the right attitude. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are just like corporate suits and they really do not care about the artist. They're
Hmm.
just trying to like co-opt the artist's monetary value and put it up on screen and then make the money from them, you know? And instead of that, I think these guys really respect Christian artists' freedom and they believe in the Christian artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I do as well. Because I know there's other people like me out there. There has to be other people like me who just haven't been heard. And whether it's Hollywood or whether it's the faith-based community, they keep falling between the cracks, you know? And so now is the time, in my view, for a lot of these Christian artists who have given up, maybe even given up hope, that now is the time to like find these platforms like Lore and Angel and realize that, hey, if you actually produced that really good short movie now with a really good IP behind it that's got potential, my goodness, you could be making it. It's not even about becoming rich or something, right? That's kind of nonsensical. The truth is you want to make a difference in society. Like you want to affect the way people think today because people's thinking is kind of gone off the deep end in many ways. And we really need like guiding principles to guide us back to good civilization and also faith in Jesus Christ again. Like, and faith in just like concepts like America, concepts of freedom, concepts of like, like family, you know, these are things we need kind of like new, fresh hope in. And so a lot of these artists, we really need them right now. We really need them to kind of show up and believe in themselves again, believe in the vision that God gave them years ago, that there's something that they can do. And so, like, my hope is that when I talk to Jason Farley, God willing, I'll be talking to Jason Farley soon, is that I'll be able to share some of my story ideas with him,
Yeah.
tell him all the stuff I've been, like my history with filmmaking and the fact that I not only am I here for myself, but I'm here for a lot of other people too. Like, I want to be part of building a community,
Hmm.
and whether that community is at Lore or Angel or wherever, it's like, what matters to me is that it affects the culture.
Yeah.
Like I want it to reach out to the culture. That's one of the reasons that I have a concern for Lore just staying in their walled garden because the problem with staying in a little walled garden is not a lot of people are going to see that content. Just the subscribers will. And so if they don't already believe in that platform, they're not going to see your content, right? And so I don't want to do that with every bit of content I make. I want my content to be more like The Chosen, where it's like, yes, Angel's helping me produce it, but now I get to take my content and just throw it out every which way around the world, put it on every streaming platform possible, even if it's like on a pirated, like if somebody
Mhm.
just wants to see it, like I would rather that happen rather than it's just hidden somewhere on some kind of one streaming platform, you
Well,
know?
they did say, and I agree, yeah, and they did say it was an incubator, which is really cool. It's a
Hmm.
really I think a more gracious perspective, like you were saying. They're not they're wanting the artist. Their heart is for the artist. So,
Yes,
you don't stay in an incubator forever. Like you're there.
right.
It's keeping you going. And then you come out of the incubator and you're a fully formed, functioning
Yeah, hopefully.
life form. So, eventually I think they're hoping, it sounds to me like Laura's hoping that these artists would come out and
Make a
start
difference.
creating, yeah, their own
Yeah.
things. But no, I was slightly like just what he was saying about PureFlix, and um it just disturbed me a little, like just thinking about that. Like, what does this even have to do with Christianity? Like the
Yeah.
children of the author and perfecter of our faith. We're natural born storytellers,
Yeah.
born from above. I mean, we claim we have the Holy Spirit, which is the breath of creativity, the breath of
Mm.
life. And we're like, let's censor, like that's just busy work.
Seriously
Like that's
restrict. Yeah.
it makes no sense. And
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying like let's wait like woohoo violence. I'm not trying to say that.
No, but it's
But
creative
why
stuff.
is that our
Yeah.
cause? Right?
Yeah.
Like why is that the cause? The cause is to just like sure there's like a verse, right, that says be not of the world, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so what, that's the only thing we do now as Christians? We just be not like the world? Like,
Just don't do that. Yeah.
right, there's so, oh my goodness, like
That's
can we
not
just talk
living.
about Jesus for a moment on the
Yeah.
cross? Like this is the
Yeah.
craziest, most beautiful, wildest love story that ever was told.
Yeah.
And there are so many stories that can reflect that. I mean, just
Hmm.
just thinking about the saints. I
Right.
thought of this while you guys were talking. I was watching you guys talk, and I'm thinking, what about the lives of the saints, and martyrs, right? These crazy things are happening to them. They're levitating, they're having these visions, they're seeing, it's wild. And why are we
Yeah.
not making these stories, right? There's a organization called the Voice of the Martyrs. There's the Fox's Book of Christian Martyrs, like, and
Yep.
again, I'm not trying to say like, let's make something violent. I'm just saying like there's
But that's real
powerful
storytelling.
stories. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's powerful stories that we can be enjoying as believers, um, and being inspired by without just getting a morality lesson or
Right.
a chapter of a self-help book, or, we're
A
saying that
finger
this
wagging from somebody.
finger wagging, or like we're saying this is a movie about Samson. Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Let's watch this movie about Samson. Oh, it was actually just like a chapter from a self-help book. That's really all it was.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and
It feels
and
like that sometimes, doesn't it?
a lot of the times,
Hmm.
I get so much out of movies that are not even Christian.
Yeah.
And I feel God's heart in them. And I'm watching this crazy story unfold, and I'm like, wow, that's just like Jesus. And so many other people get that too. So
Yep.
why are Christians like, no, it has to be this formula,
Yeah.
or else it's not a Christian movie.
Right. Yeah,
Okay, sorry, I'll calm down.
to wrap up, I was just going to say because what you're touching on is essentially the difference between the first century church and the real church and the Western church now, which is that we've been living in this fake utopian dreamlike state of believing that we don't have to suffer for anything, that there isn't suffering in the world like as Fox's Book of Christian Martyrs shows us, and the most classic Christian stories through history show us, is that you're going to have to suffer for Christ, generally speaking. Instead, we have this like rom-com idea of like, well, life's going to be all peachy and your only mission is to like get a nice job and get a good family, and that's all you need to do, and have this storybook life, right? And this American dream and utopian vision. And we keep selling that instead of selling the actual reality, which is what the Bible talks about. Like the Christ on the cross. We've talked about this before, right? The offense of the cross. That's actually the reality. That's what God has taught us through the gospel, right? The reality is our sin is grotesque and put him on the cross. And that's us putting him on the cross. So we have to remember that humanity is not some kind of like little American dream notion, utopia. No, like it's dark, it's sinister. People have to die for these goals that people have, political goals, like, and we as Christians generally are going to suffer for that if we're following Christ, so the
Yeah,
storytelling that we want to tell reveals that truth. It's offensive. It tells people they have to change and repent. It tells people that they might have to suffer, for the truth. And it tells people that life is not easy, right? And so, like, these are the messages that little boys need to hear so they can get stronger and go and accomplish something in life. And our society that's become so feminized and so like um so fragile and so protected. Like, we don't want people to hurt our feelings in the West. That's because we're so fragile. Like, we've protected ourselves from the reality of the world and believed, like, we don't even know where our food comes from. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even know like how the world's constructed. Like, even our food comes from suffering. You know what I mean? Like, this is how far we've come away from the reality of how our world's constructed. And so the truth is, good storytellers and artists reveal the truth. They reveal that that um, life is oftentimes full of suffering, and the way out of this is not to avoid it; it's to press into it, like
Yeah.
and realize that God is with us, even if we have to do hard things, right? And like Christ, when he was leaving, it's funny, he was leaving and then he said, I'll be with you till the end of the age. It's like, what? Wait, aren't you leaving? Like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to be with you, right? I'm with you in spirit, and you're worshiping in God in spirit and truth. And so your Holy Spirit is uniting us, and we're going to be together. We're going to do this together. We're going to yoke
Woo.
together and do this thing together. And yeah, it might hurt, but the healing is so much greater than the hurt. The healing, and then all the lessons you get from it is just like, it's so much greater than you can even comprehend. And comprehending it isn't even the biggest part of it. It's just experiencing it, experiencing the beauty of it. So with him, that's just, it's great tilling a field when you're yoked with Christ, right? He's making it worth it,
Nice.
you know?
Amen.
So let's wrap it up. I really appreciate you doing this with me because it was so much fun, because I never thought I'd have so much fun like reacting to another thing,
Yes.
and I was contemplating maybe I should interrupt it and pause it and then just
Yeah.
react to it. And I think generally if we're reacting to something, we probably should do that, but because there could be copyright strikes you get. In this case, obviously it's our video, so we can't get stricken for that. But in the future, when we react, we could do something like take a few pauses every now and then and react. But that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, and that was a great interview. And
Yeah, surprisingly good.
and I want to pray for Lord
I love
TV.
Marcus.
God, thank you so much for Lord TV. I just pray that
Mhm.
you would tell the stories that you want to tell, and you would give courage to your children.
Yes, Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, thank you, God, for Marcus and for Jason. Thank you that they're doing these great things, Lord. Give them strength. So we'll wrap it up, but we love you guys and thank you for visiting and listening. And we hope that you will consider Lore. And we're going to be doing more interviews, hopefully with them and with Angel and with DW and these other people who are making great strides in the culture to make a difference. So appreciate you and stand up for the culture.
Mm.
All right. Have a good weekend, guys. Good night.